Odalami, immigration attorney from the Odalami law firm in New Jersey. I'm going to wait for people to come on because this is a really important topic and I want to make sure that you guys get this information. We're going to be talking today about marriage fraud and its consequences. And this is really important because I find that a lot of people, a lot of immigrants are, they're desperate to get their papers, and there are people out there making money off of their desperation, trying to get them to get involved in sham marriages. And the immigrants, the non-citizens, do not know what the consequences of these actions are. So I want you guys to hear from me. I'm going to quote case law because I want you to know that I have backup for the information I'm about to give you. This is really important. So if you know somebody who might be in this situation, please send this video to them. Let them watch it and know the truth. So today we're going to be talking about marriage fraud and the consequences. And then I will look to see if there's any comments and I'll answer any questions. So there is a whole fraud unit in USCIS, right? There's a whole unit because marriage fraud is a big thing, right? So today I'm going to talk about when there's a finding of marriage fraud. What does this mean? So there is a section of the law otherwise known as 204C. 204C is a fraud finding. So basically, if, for instance, you marry a US citizen or green card holder, you go through the process, you go for an interview, they make a decision, they deny your case, and they give the reason as 204C. That basically means that USCIS has made a finding that your marriage was a fraudulent marriage, that it was entered into for the sole purpose of procuring an immigration benefit. So it was not entered into for love or for any real reason. They're saying that this marriage was not entered into because you want to have a life with this person, but basically you're looking solely for an immigration benefit. 204C is a horrible, horrible finding, right? And the reason it's a horrible finding is because 204C is a permanent bar. That means that you cannot get any other immigration benefit, right? That's what it means. So it's really harsh because you might have been maybe 20 when 20 years old when you got you got involved in a marriage that was not for real. And then 30 years later, or maybe 20 years later, you're now in a real marriage and with somebody who you love, who loves you. And USCIS will go to this first marriage and deny your current marriage because of the first marriage. So it's a permanent bar. So it's the burden of the government, of course, to deter. It's their burden to show that it's a sham marriage, and they have to do this through providing substantial and probative evidence, regardless of whether the person received the benefit or not. So initially, everyone assumed that if there's a 204C finding that said there was a fraudulent marriage, we all knew that it meant that it was a permanent bar. But then a new case law came out in 2020, October 2020, called the Matter of PAC, P-A-K. And in that BIA ruling, the government didn't even have to make a finding of fraud. So basically, if the government says that you submitted insufficient evidence to prove that your marriage was a genuine marriage, that could be that's a 204C finding. And this is a huge deal because a lot of people file their applications and they don't put too much thought into it because they're like, oh, it's for real. We know it's for real. And so they, don't put enough evidence, or they go for the interview and they don't prepare for the interview. And then there's a decision that your case has been denied because of insufficient evidence. According to the Matter of PAC, that new law, that's a 204C finding. So let's discuss certain scenarios where a 204C finding may hamper your ability to get immigration benefit? Well, like I've talked about before, if you're married, a subsequent marriage after a 204C finding, or after a finding that there was insufficient evidence, could cause your current marriage to be denied, right? That's number one. Number two, if, say, you were involved in a marriage where the government found that there was insufficient evidence, or there was marriage fraud, and now you have a parent, or maybe your 21-year-old US citizen child now wants to file for you, right? And USCIS goes back to look at the fact that there was a finding of a sham marriage in the first marriage, or the fact that there was not insufficient evidence of to prove that it was a real marriage. That finding will affect your ability to get a green card, because your child or your parent will not be able to get you a green card because of that finding. So I cannot tell you how important it is to take it seriously when you're filing your immigrant visa petition. And of course, don't get involved in sham marriages. The consequences are too dear. So another case that came out in 2020 as well is the case of the matter of R.I. Ortega. In this case, the BIA found that Section 204C bar may apply to a non-citizen who applied for a K visa, even though they never got married. Can you believe that? So a K visa is a non-immigrant visa. It's not an immigrant visa. A K visa is a fiancé visa. So the extension of 204C to this is a big deal. But the BIA said that the unique nature of the K1 fiancé program was being noted, and that the visa holders have a direct path to permanent resident status and have traditionally been treated as functional equivalents of immediate relatives for purposes of immigrant visa eligibility and availability. So even a sham relationship where you go and apply for a K visa, go for the interview, put in the documents, can get you a finding of 204C. So in this case, the beneficiary had, well, according to the findings, that, he had applied for a K1 visa. He went for the interview and he was denied because there was a finding that it was a sham relationship. And then his mother, who was a US citizen, sought to file for him later on, and he was denied based on that 204C finding in the K visa application. So there's one exception, though. 204C has carved out a limited exception, and this is a matter of Isher, I-S-H-E-R. So 204C does not apply where there's a second marital petition filed by the same spouse upon which the original marriage was found to trigger Section 4C. So what this means is that if a marriage is found to be fraudulent and the same petitioner may file again for that same person, and they're not barred by 204C. So that's why it's important when you're filing your immigrant-based petition, you need to make sure that you have all your documents, you have all the information you need. It's not enough to just know that it's a real marriage, because it's the burden of proof of the person who's petitioning to prove that it's a real marriage. And I have a lot of videos on how to present your bona fide marriage to USCIS, so if you go through some of my videos, you'll see, but for today's purpose, I'll just mention some of it. You're married to a US citizen or a green card holder. You have to first of all make sure that if you were married before, you were properly divorced. Because if you are not properly divorced, you cannot marry somebody while you're married to somebody else. That's bigamy, and that's against law in the United States. So if there's any prior divorce on both parties, petitioner and the beneficiary, you have to show evidence of proper divorce. And this has actually been a reason to deny many petitions, just because there's no, either the documents, the divorce decree was found to be fake, or the procedure to getting the divorce decree wasn't properly, proven. So if you go to travel.state.org, USCIS lays out what the expectation is based on what country you are from and based on what type of marriage you are. So if you have a customary marriage, there are certain guidelines to how, the kind of divorce decrees that USCIS will recognize. If you have a church marriage, a registry marriage, an Islamic marriage, USCIS tells you what their reciprocity is with regards to what they accord the divorce decrees that you present. So that's the first thing. You need to show that you're properly married. The second thing you need to show is that, you have to show proof that it's a real marriage. How do you show this proof? You can show this proof by showing that you guys reside together, right? Or if you don't live together, there should be a reason why you don't live together at that time. So for instance, if you're a student and you're waiting to complete your, college or whatever before you join your spouse, that could be a reason. But if the reason is because you have a job somewhere and your spouse has a job somewhere else, that's not a really great reason, because unless it's a job you cannot find in the place where your spouse is, or your spouse cannot find a job where you are, you're gonna really have a hard time showing that it's a bona fide marriage, because separations or not living together is a red flag for a sham marriage. And it's especially a red flag if both of you live in the same city and you don't live together, So you also have to show that you're financially commingled. You have you have a lease together or mortgage together if you have a house, or if you don't have any of those, because sometimes people rent a place with other people. You have to be able to get a letter from maybe the person you're renting from, establishing that you and your spouse live there. You have to get affidavits from other people, maybe your neighbors, the other tenants, showing that you guys live there. So it's really, you have to just present your proof. You want to have proof of financial commingling. You have joint bank accounts, and in those bank accounts, you need to show that that bank account is being used by both of the couple, either to pay their bills, or maybe their paychecks are being direct deposited into it. If you have children together or stepchildren together, that's a great that's evidence gold, right? You want to show evidence that people know you together as a couple, so pictures where you're in public functions, if you've taken vacations together, you want to have evidence of that. So this and other way, these are the other ways, there are many ways to prove that it's a real relationship. So the important thing to know is you really have to take your filing seriously to avoid a denial and to avoid an RFE, or avoid just wasting time and money. My office does a lot of family-based petition. That's primarily what we do: family-based petition and humanitarian-based petition. So if you or anyone else is in need of immigration assistance, feel free to call my office, 973-993-1900, and follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button so that when we come on, you will be notified. So that's my video for today. I will be back again. Take care, everyone. Bye.